D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful start to your week. It's a beautiful day in our fair city. Gentlemen, how are we?
I had a wonderful start to my working day. I tell you that, boy. If y'all could have heard some of the things we were saying, and it wasn't anything raunchy like that, but man, Adam.
I mean, it was a little raunchy.
Yeah, Adam doesn't seem funny.
What?
But he is funny.
What?
I mean, somebody looks at, they probably think Adam's not funny because you know you're analytical, you're a nerd.
Yeah,
it's all these.
But Adam,
it's just boosting my confidence.
But Adam,
to start the show, Derek, my birthday is tomorrow, by the way. Happy birthday to me!
Early birthday, as I told my daughter. Happy birthday Eve, because your birthday is on the same day as my daughter's birthday.
That is a
That's
wonderful
why I like
thing.
you so much. But
just building up my confidence.
You would think he's not funny, but this kid is hilarious. Like he just said, and I don't think he thinks it's funny, but it's funny to me. Like every time he'd just give a one-liner.
I'm low key. I'm low key hilarious. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, this is not the first hit to my confidence that I've received today. Somebody texted into Robbie and Rexroad this morning and told them to tell me that I should stop wearing women's frames like I'm George Costanza. And I'm like, I'm sorry, these are men's frames.
How do you know which one's which? I don't even know.
I don't know. They look like men frames.
So my fashion sense has been called into question. My
humor
has been called into question. We're off to a great start.
But I did say you were funny.
Yes, but you buried the lead.
Yeah, I kind of.
You started by saying Adam doesn't look funny.
You took a jab, but then you brought the compliment back.
I should have rephrased. I should have rephrased that. I can't.
Okay.
Rephrase
well,
that.
The good news
Adam is funny. He may not look it at times, but he is funny.
The good news is we have 2 hours and 57 minutes for me to prove to you that I am indeed funny. We do have a fun show planned for today. Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us at 4:00. Joe Rexroad, speaking of Rexroad, will join us at 5:00. He was live in Oklahoma City for the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. So we'll catch up with Rexroad, talk some basketball. The Predators, the hottest team in the NHL, 4 consecutive wins, their longest winning streak of the season. There goes my load management plan. And we will get to the Predators.
No, I want you to keep presenting that plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Keep presenting it.
He said, what, after 3 games?
Yeah.
This is what I said for those who missed it last week. Before the Predators' winning streak began, I said that if on Monday morning, meaning today, the Predators were further out of a playoff spot than they were before the winning streak started, that they should, quote unquote, load manage the rest of the way. Since then, they are 4-0. So I'll consider myself a master motivator on top of also being hilarious and fashionable.
That's why I want you to keep presenting the load management plan.
Exactly.
Because clearly, it seems to be working. But we will get into the Predators later in the program, and we will have an opportunity for you to win tickets to see your Nashville Predators take on the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday. So be listening for that. But we do begin today's show on a somber note. Vanderbilt's heartbreaking 74-72 loss to Nebraska in the round of 32 on Saturday night. It was an incredible game. And never in my wildest dreams, gentlemen, did I imagine that a basketball game between Vanderbilt and Nebraska would have me on the edge of my seat. The Commodores held their own in a hostile environment. As I mentioned, Rexroad will join us. He was there, but on TV, it sounded like the most heavily partisan neutral court crowd I have ever heard. But the moment we will all remember is Tyler Tanner's half-court heave, that rimmed out at the buzzer. If he makes that, we are seeing footage of that shot for decades. Just an incredible opportunity there, and I felt devastated for Tyler Tanner, who joined our program on Friday. But I've got some questions about this game. We will get to those. But let's just start generally with our resident Commodore, Willie Donick. I told Max Hers and Hal Gill on the pregame show yesterday to give you a hug for me because I wasn't going to be able to do it until today. How are you feeling? Your thoughts on the game on Saturday?
Well, right now I am on pure March Madness adrenaline right now with all of these games coming at me left and right. And that one was, as you described, just a great sporting event, a tremendous challenge to try to win a game like that in that environment. And I don't blame the committee, really, because as people have pointed out, if you're not a geography major, it's not like this game was in Lincoln, Nebraska. It just seemed like it, right? It's not like it was a 45-minute drive for a lot of their fans. Like, they had to drive quite a few miles. Those are big states. So it's not like Oklahoma City is right next door, even though it's relatively close. It just speaks to the Nebraska fan base, which is very, very special. But that, for all of the things that Vanderbilt accomplished this year, it was tough to have to play that game in that round. We had the discussion about we feel like they were underseeded. They deserved a better seed. But that aside, they had chances to win that game, right? That was a game that was so close, and I think you knew it was going to be, that it came down to little things or just one or two shots. And sometimes that's college basketball. That's what makes the tournament great, is it's one game. And I think there are so many things you're going to look back on if you're Vanderbilt on just little things here and there that could have been the difference in winning and losing. But I think by and large, in the big picture, really good season. Hopefully they'll be able to continue to attract the type of players they're attracting and be back in this position time and time again. And hopefully one year it's going to fall right and you're going to make a deep run into the tournament.
Derek, there are two things that stand out to me about this game. Number one, thank God for Tyler Tanner.
Yes.
If not for Tyler Tanner, that game would have been over in the first half. He had 15 of Vanderbilt's 32 points in the first half. He shot 5 of 10. The rest of the team shot 5 for 17 in the first half. So thank God for Tyler Tanner, even though, of course, he missed that shot from half court, which it reminded me of Butler's half court heave that almost beat Duke in the 2010 title game. I thought it went in. When that ball hit the rim, I thought it was dropping. I was as surprised as everybody when it rimmed out. So first things first, thank God for Tyler Tanner. Second thing, Willie mentioned the little things. Vanderbilt entered this game as one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. They had hit nearly 80% of their free throws on the season entering this game. The Commodores shot 11 of 19 from the free throw line, 58% thereabouts. That was their worst free throw shooting performance of the season. I believe Devin McLaughlin himself, 0 for 4 from the free throw line. As simple as it sounds, you hit your average, you win the game. But those are two things that stood out to me about the game.
Yeah, and in closely contested games like this, the margins are free throws. And when you shoot 58% and the other team shoots 70%, and y'all roughly going at sort of the same clip, then that's one of those margins that you lose. In football, we call them hidden points or hidden yardage. Special teams, things like that, false starts, things like that. Those are hidden yardage. Either you're going to be on the plus end or the minus end. And when it comes to that, Vanderbilt was on the minus end. So that has to be a team that, if you're going to win again, if you're going to win a game like that, you have to make those. Also, we talked about this, and truly thank God for Tanner. And they better give him a lot of money to come back, because that kid is exceptional. He may go down as being, if he stays at least another year or two, he may go down as being one of the greatest point guards or players in Vandy's history. And in the way he's developed from last year to this year, I mean, goodness gracious, this kid's good. But I think that's first and foremost, but that more so off the season. But this team, we talked about what type of game was Vandy going to play. Were they going to, take advantage of the court, meaning trying to get some low posts, because it's not like Nebraska's a big team. Nebraska's tallest person, at least their starters, was 6'10". And maybe that's a little fib too. They're probably more like 6'9". So it's not like they had this huge height advantage in the middle. And you chose not to play that game. You chose to play the game. And I know Vandy loves going up and down the court. I get that. But you're playing right into the hands of Nebraska. And you end up shooting double what Nebraska did from the three-point line. And you still didn't hit a higher percentage than Nebraska, I don't believe. No, you didn't. Nebraska 47%, you were 35%. So you got into this, and there was really no reason for them to get into that type of game, because it wasn't like, in the second half, they were down 15 points. This was always sort of this back and forth. And I think the highest lead was 10 by Nebraska. But that was early on. So it was never this, we got to shoot to catch up. Y'all played right into the hands of Nebraska. And ultimately, Nebraska ended up winning. Now, we could talk about some of the other stuff that happened, but if you look at the stats, a lot of those like margin stats, actually Vanderbilt won, except the key one, free throws.
Yeah, that was the free throws. They've been so good all year long. The other thing about the free throws is, and this is Nebraska's design, they don't foul that much. So Vanderbilt shot less free throws, way less than they normally shoot. So not only did they hit a low percentage, but 11 free throws, I would bet, would be in the bottom 5 or 6 of totals for the season, because they have won a lot of games where they have lived at the free throw line. And that's why I think the move of the game from a coaching standpoint was by Fred Hoiberg, the Nebraska coach. They switched to a 1-3-1 half-court trap kind of zone in the final 5 minutes. And I have been parts of teams where that has happened. I've watched teams do that. Now, you have to be good at that defense. You can't just do it if you haven't practiced it. But when they did that, I think Vanderbilt was a little bit out of sorts. They weren't lost, but they weren't getting the same looks. I think they had figured out the man-to-man defense for Nebraska. The offense was flowing in the second half. They were starting to hit the threes. And then they were slowed down a little bit. They weren't quite sure where the gaps were, where the holes were. And I thought that was the best move of the game, because it kept Vanderbilt off the free throw line. And Vanderbilt didn't quite get the quality shots down the stretch that they had up until that point to put them, because they put themselves in the lead there. And I felt like, okay, here's where they've been a lot. They were in the 1-and-1, get fouled, win the game at the free throw line. But Nebraska's zone, I think, was a key move.
By the way, Vanderbilt averaged around 23 free throw attempts per game on the season, 19 against the Cornhuskers. Duke Miles had a rough game, too. 2 of 10 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. I believe he had half of Vanderbilt's turnovers, 4 out of 8.
He looked lost out there.
He struggled mightily in that game, and I think that had a lot to do with the loss as well. Tyler Nickel came alive in the second half. A.K. Okereke made some big plays in the second half. His 3 put Vanderbilt up for the first time, 58-55, with about 8.5 minutes to go. But he made some big plays. Duke Miles, though, Derek, had a game to forget.
Yeah, he was 1 for 8 from 3-point.
1 of 8 from 3, 2 of 10 from the field.
So, I mean,
and he had some good looks too. No, looks that he normally will knock down.
Exactly. And he seemed a little sluggish with the basketball. He seemed a little bit indecisive at times. What is sort of his strength was his weakness. He dribbled too far into the paint a few times. He got himself stuck. That has been a strength for him throughout the season, him being able to find a way to either get a pass off or a shot off. And he just couldn't do that this past weekend. So if he, gets into rhythm, an extra 3-4 shots helps that team, because I don't look at Vandy and say they played a horrible game. I think they probably played a little bit more into Nebraska's hands, but I don't think they played a horrible game, because, again, if you look at a lot of the margins, steals, blocks, turnovers, they didn't have as many turnovers than Nebraska did. So you look at, points in the paint, You know, they were about even. No, fouls. I mean, not point to the paint. But if you look at these little margins, they're right there with Nebraska. It's just, again, it goes back to the free throws, and then guys that you've depended on. They didn't step up when they needed to, and that's Duke Miles.
I wonder how much the crowd had an effect on the game. It's hard to put a point total on that, but I think history has shown that college basketball, and of course, it's not their home court, right? So it's a great debate on, is it the court or is it the fans? But in some respect, it makes an impact on the game more on college basketball. And I think the numbers bear this out. The home court advantage in basketball is bigger than any other sport. Why? I'm not sure. But I would be curious on how many points that was worth to Nebraska on that night, because they were feeling it, right? I thought Vanderbilt had a really good game plan on how to guard them. They didn't give them 3 after 3. It's how Tennessee dismantled Miami of Ohio. Unlike SMU, they didn't let Miami just fire away at will. They made every 3 tough. Vanderbilt limited the 3-point attempts for Nebraska, made them take tough twos, kept them off the free throw line. But Nebraska played a great game. They shot 60% from 2, 47% from 3. That's just a great shooting night. And I thought Vanderbilt's defense was good.
The other part about this that stings is, had Vanderbilt advanced, the Commodores would have avoided Florida. I know that Vanderbilt defeated Florida soundly during the SEC tournament, but Florida eliminated last night by Iowa, the first number 1 seed to go down. Vanderbilt would have drawn Iowa in the Sweet 16, and who knows from there. I know it's a game of what if, but I did think about that last night as I watched Iowa eliminate Florida, that it could be Vanderbilt going up against Iowa in the Sweet 16. 615-737-1025. Your reaction to Vanderbilt's 74-72 loss to Nebraska in the round of 32 on Saturday night. An unbelievable game, even though it did not end up in Vanderbilt's win column. Coming up next, however, I have 2 questions about the end of the game that I want Willie and Derek and all of you to answer. 615-737-1025. I will share those questions coming up next. And by the way, all of our coverage of the NCAA men's basketball tournament here on 1025 The Game is presented by Toyota, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, Maple Street Biscuit Company, Thompson Machinery, and Pizzona MD.
Happy Monday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. If you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and what it means. So they will help you get it all repaired and better yet replaced. So call 1-800-LAW Tigers or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Houston, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Street South. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, a team that is pushing their way into the playoffs, and courtesy of Law Tigers in Music City, Indiana. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
the hardest thing when you're in a tournament like this is there's a side of it with hurt and dejection, and you put everything into it, and we were a play away, an inch away from being in the Sweet 16, and it's going to take a while for us to get over, but I think there's going to be a point that we're going to look back and think of the unbelievable journey this season's been, how great these guys were to coach, how great these guys were for Vanderbilt, the memories they made along the way. But this one hurts. We felt like we were good enough to make a run, and there's whatever you want to say, 20 or 30 plays, and if one of them is different, the outcome's different.
That was Vanderbilt coach Mark Byington following the Commodores' 74-72 loss to Nebraska in the round of 32 on Saturday. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. It is a Reaction Monday. We are reacting to Vanderbilt's loss, and Reaction Mondays are brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. So, gentlemen and listeners, 615-737-1025, I have two questions about the end of the game that I want us to attempt to answer. Derek, you can go first with the first question. Should Vanderbilt have taken a timeout on its final possession before the game-winning layup by Nebraska? They had one timeout at that point. Should they have taken a timeout on that possession?
I think they did for this reason. One, that sounds like a coach that understands that he may have lost the game for us. He's taken all of it on him, because he even said it. I don't think they were inches away. They were plays away, and then he came back around to that. There were about 20 or 30 plays in there, and I'm sure he feels the blame of the bulk of it, as he should as the head coach. But that's what that sounds like to me, that he believes he and his team, and part of him, missed a golden opportunity to take this university, this program a little bit further. So he's taken a lot. That's why he said this one hurts. It really does, and I'm sure it do. But for me, I say they should have, because they seemed out of sync on that last possession. They just seemed like nobody really know what to do, or didn't want to take the shot, or couldn't find the guy that was supposed to take the shot. I think at that point you just call a timeout and you regroup. So that's why and maybe it wouldn't have changed anything. I don't know, but it just seemed like his team wasn't relaxed and poised. It seemed like the moment was too big for him. And in that situation, I think you just call a timeout, but I can get the other side of it.
I go back to, I think, the biggest move in the game, and that was Fred Hoiberg switching to the zone. I think that, as much as anything, contributed to the indecision on the last possession, because against the zone, it's hard to run a set play. It's one thing to say against the man, clock's running down, we get the ball to Tyler Tanner up top, we run the high screen, he gets the switch, he works the matchups, everybody spots up, and you know what you're going to get. Against the zone, it's not that simple. So I think I agree that if you could do it over again, maybe you take the timeout, because there was a point in time, I think, where I forget who had the ball, but it was kind of in the short corner. There was kind of a trap. That was the moment maybe where you say, all right, reset it. Still got enough time to reset, get our minds right, see if we can come up with something better. But he rolled the dice. They didn't get a bad shot, right? It's not probably who you want to take the shot, ideally. And Chandler Bing, who kind of takes the catch and shoot maybe a little further out from the basket than you would normally do on a play like that, he probably had time to gather and go up strong to the rim, which he's really good at. So all these what ifs in that. So it's not like they didn't get a shot. The biggest thing that I thought cost them, because remember, if they took their timeout, then in theory, they don't have the timeout after Nebraska takes. So that's why I think you like to have the timeout in your pocket, just in case what happened. The biggest thing that Vanderbilt failed to do was a simple thing, but in the in the big moment, sometimes the simple things are harder than you realize. And that was not picking up on transition defense. They let the guy, the one thing you can't let happen, and that's a guy breaking free to the basket. Somebody's got to pick that guy up. So there were a couple of Vanderbilt guys that got caught behind, and that's okay. But the guys that were back, somebody's got to pick up that cutter, right? The two guys ran to the guy with the ball. The guy cuts down the middle, and he's got a layup. And you hate giving up a layup. If a guy hits a three, a little bit of, hey, you got to tip your hat if a guy does that. And then the other thing that I was a little disappointed with, as great as that shot was from Tyler Tanner, because it almost went in. And I knew that he was capable because we saw him in Missouri.
Yes.
Almost hit a shot that was almost as difficult in the same situation that rimmed out. But with 2.2 seconds, and after you call a timeout with the ball underneath the basket, you have an opportunity to get the ball further up the court than they did. Just throwing it in and shooting it from 70 feet.
Yeah.
I just didn't like that. I think that I would rather, even if the ball ends up going out of bounds and you don't get a shot, I like trying to throw it past half court. And then you have a chance to take two dribbles and still get a shot. If you could get the ball to Tanner or Nickel or somebody with a chance to take a dribble or two and shoot it from, say, 30 feet or 27 feet rather than 70 feet, that's a huge difference in the percentage chance that goes in. And they just, I don't know what happened there, but they called the timeout. And I was thinking, run something there. Like, the Christian Laettner play is the most famous one. The Bryce Drew, you can call plays like that that you practice all year long. And I was disappointed that that's what they came up with, as close as he came to making it.
That was my second question. Do we take issue with the design of Vanderbilt's final play? John Hollinger, who writes for The Athletic, also used to work in the Memphis Grizzlies front office for several years. So safe to say John Hollinger knows basketball. He wrote this at The Athletic about Vanderbilt's final play. Quote, coaches in this situation would at least want Tanner to make what's called a banana cut and curve his run so that he can get some momentum coming back up the court, especially with little Nebraska pressure, but not here. Tanner comes to a dead stop with 2.2 seconds to go and roughly 70 feet between him and the basket. Look, Tanner is fast, crazy fast, but he isn't that fast. He took one dribble and ended up shooting from his own side of half court. Him nearly making one of the most miraculous shots in tournament history doesn't change the fact there was enough time to do much, much better.
Good points.
I'm going to laugh at one thing. He's crazy fast, but not that fast. I thought crazy fast was like really fast.
I'd like to be known as crazy fast.
Exactly.
I hear you.
No, but listen, and that's why listening to Coach, and when he's saying what he's saying, and you can see the passion and the disappointment, it's not necessarily in his team. He's disappointed for his team, but he's disappointed in himself because of situations like that where you just had a timeout and you ran basically a stationary play and then gets momentum up the field instead of designing. And maybe he just didn't talk it all the way through and made sure everyone knew their assignment. So those are the things that when coaches are talking, especially in situations like this, and you watch the game, you think like, man, that game was closely contested. They really didn't play bad. The other team played about the same, but it was just moments, like you said, going into a trap, and throwing Vandy out of rhythm. When games are that close, it's what you do from the sideline sometimes that matters. Why do you think in football, Belichick, outside of his quote unquote cheating, but Belichick, he was four spots ahead of everybody because he was planning for things. He was doing things, switching it up on people, working on people's weaknesses. And they always had this thing going with them. Smart coaches know, and I'm not saying Byington isn't, but I think in those moments, what separate teams that are as close as Vanderbilt and Nebraska were that night is the X's and O's sometimes. And their coach made the right move as far as X's and O's to go into the zone. And I think Byington probably wish he would have done something different.
I think these are all fair points for sure. And you can nitpick on a lot of things when you lose a game by 2. And it, if they were a little hot, we mentioned Duke Miles. If he has maybe his normal shooting game and hits one or two more of those big shots, because against the zone, what do you have to do? You have to bomb from three, right? You just have to shoot over it, which keeps a lot of teams from even trying zones these days, because the range that some of these shooters have these days, it makes it really hard to zone. Or you've got to get in the gaps and you've got to make those passes in the interior. But when the pressure's on, and it's a tight game and you haven't faced many zones, I can't remember the last time Vanderbilt faced a zone. They just weren't comfortable. And so that is a good chess move by Fred Hoiberg to take Vanderbilt out of the comfort zone. And it might have been the difference in the game.
Eli on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Vandy lost because they had opportunities to get defensive rebounds at the end of the game and they did not execute. And Nebraska was able to get a couple easy putbacks. Bob said, seemed to me that Vandy got out-coached at the end when Nebraska switched to the zone, and Vandy seemed confused. Another texter says, my reaction to the game, this is Paul, by the way, my reaction to the game, I said a lot of bad words.
I'm sure.
How many did Willie say?
We were in a Irish pub in Chicago. There was a bachelor party where the groom was was about to marry a Vanderbilt grad. So they all had jumped on the Vanderbilt bandwagon. So,
and you didn't know this when you walked in, obviously.
No, this was happenstance that it happened.
Serendipitous.
And
there we go.
So I thought the magic was there. I thought this was meant to be. They were hilarious. Of course, they, typical bachelor party. They'd been some places before they'd been there.
When Vandy is in 3, the luck shall be.
Yeah. So it was, and then the double whammy was High Point was going on as well. Lindsey Rowley with us, watching High Point, Arkansas at the same time, this is the great part about the tournament and the sports bar, right? You have multiple games going on. Everybody's going nuts. So both High Point and Vanderbilt fell. So it was just, the broadcast crew was down and depressed after the game was over. But I mean, they were two really, really good basketball games.
Absolutely. Like I said, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that a basketball game between Vanderbilt and Nebraska would have me on the edge of my seat. It did not work out for the Commodores, but it was one hell of a game.
One of the texters mentioned the extra possessions. I thought Vanderbilt on the boards did very well. They only gave up 5 offensive rebounds the whole game. So that was not a problem. Part of it was because Nebraska didn't miss a whole lot of shots. They shot the ball well, so there's not a lot of offensive rebounds to be had. So they weren't worried about that. But I thought Vanderbilt controlled the boards pretty well, as they should have. I think it came down to not getting to the free throw line very much. And, there were a couple weird calls too. These are all the what? These are, again, it's going to sound like I'm sour grapes here, but the guy makes the steal on the one. Clearly double dribbles.
Oh yeah.
But we're now now we're in a mode in college basketball where we don't care about the rules anymore of double dribbles, carries, travels. You sound like the old guy yelling at the cloud.
Yes.
If you
was
like
it Chris Webber?
Chris Webber pointed out right away.
Yeah.
That's a double dribble. He took 2 hands on the ball and bounced the ball. The first thing you learn when you learn how to play basketball is you can't do that. But were the refs paying attention? Oh, they don't care.
But he was looking right at him.
But going to commercial, Chris Webber said something like, you can't even get away with that in the church league.
Exactly. You can't, man.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And it had me laughing.
Brutal.
Yes.
And then the other weird sequence from the officiating standpoint, I thought overall it was a well-officiated game. So you can't blame it on the refs. But there were 2 calls when Vanderbilt had taken the lead. I think both fouls were one was on Tyler Tanner. The cameras were confused. There were 2 whistles away from the ball. Nothing was happening on the play. Nebraska is like bringing the ball up the court. They haven't made a pass yet. 2 fouls away from the ball on Vanderbilt. They never showed the replay that I could see. I'd like to know what happened there. Like that. So those were free points for Nebraska that helped them inch back, because Vanderbilt was on the verge of turning the game around and really dictating down the stretch. That helped Nebraska stay close enough to where they weren't worried about having to force the issue at all. And I don't know what happened on those plays, but you rarely see that.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your reaction to Vanderbilt's loss to Nebraska on Saturday. But coming up next, there are multiple theories out there about why there haven't been many upsets in the tournament. Which one do we believe most? We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
To the players, guys, what was going through your head when you saw that ball go in and out at the end?
My heart sank as that ball went in the hoop and then it went out. And I think it took me half a second to register that it didn't go in, and then I just screamed in elation. But yeah, I thought it was in.
No, I mean, I had a perfect shot on it from the bench, and I I just froze for 2 seconds. Like I thought it went in. I didn't know how to react, and I was just everybody started celebrating. I was like, he actually missed it. So it was,
yeah, I just about died. I was I was on the side, so I didn't know the angle it was on. But man, I just want to thank the good Lord Jesus Christ for that one.
That was the Nebraska basketball team following Tyler Tanner's missed half-court buzzer beater attempt. Vanderbilt loses 74-72. Ricky on our text line says, Vols greater than Vandy men's basketball. Looks like their floor was lower. We'll talk about the Vols at some point. Going back to the Sweet 16, defeating Virginia yesterday. A tough matchup upcoming for the Vols against Iowa State in Chicago this weekend. We will get into the Vols. Don't you worry, Ricky, and other Vols fans out there. But there have been countless think pieces written about the lack of upsets in the NCAA tournament. And there are multiple theories on why that's been the case. We've talked about the transfer portal and NIL and the effect that those two entities are having on the lack of upsets. Dan Wolken of Yahoo Sports had an interesting column the other day pointing the finger at conference realignment. He wrote, quote, if Cinderella is indeed on life support, it's far more likely that the mad rush since 2010 to draw up coast-to-coast mammoth football conferences was what put her in the ICU in the first place, end quote. I even read an interesting story from Kevin Sweeney of Sports Illustrated, who pointed to the stylistic shifts in the game of basketball. His theory is that mid-majors, the way that they're building their teams, perhaps is a bit outdated. He pointed to Miami, Ohio versus Tennessee. He wrote, quote, Miami was built in the mold of many traditional mid-majors, opening the floor with 4 and 5 out offensive sets and firing up shots from beyond the arc. Tennessee is among the sport's biggest smash mouth squads, leading the nation in offensive rebounding rate and rarely taking threes. Tennessee won the rebounding battle 42-25, made nearly double the number of 2-point field goals that Miami did, and was in never serious danger. It was never in serious danger as a result. So a lot of different theories around there, Willie Donick. Which one do you think has the most credence?
I still think that as we move forward and coaches adapt, that there will still be some Cinderella stuff to be reckoned with. One thing that I theorize and have for a while is that the 30-second shot clock that has somewhat homogenized the game, like you just don't see as much variety. When you had the 45-second shot clock, you could be a full-court pressing team, relentless like Arkansas used to be under Nolan Richardson. Rick Pitino used to do it more. For years and years, Iowa, Dr. Tom Davis used to do it. You would have teams like that, pressing teams, right? That every game, they didn't care who they were playing. They're pressing. And then you had other teams that were more deliberate, that wanted to break you down. They want to spread you. They want to take 30 seconds each time, a lower possession game, and then find the back door, find the open shot. Now with 30 seconds, really, you can't do it. Like if you're going to press, it's more of a token press, and you get back, you try to shave time off the shot clock. So I think that has hurt teams that can throw you the curveball, right? A pressing team that can sneak up on you, or a Princeton back in the day that used to run, just kill you with that late backdoor 45 seconds into the shot clock. So I think that's part of it too. But I am a little worried, I have to say. Like 2 years in a row without really a Cinderella in the Sweet 16, that's tough to stomach.
Derek,
that's what we love about the tournament.
Here is the Sweet 16 breakdown by conference. Your Big Ten, 6 teams in the Sweet 16. The SEC, 4 teams. The Big 12, 3 teams. The Big East, 2 teams, and just one ACC team remaining in the Sweet 16. Jeff Borzello of ESPN notes this is only the second time in NCAA tournament history where the Sweet 16 is made up entirely of teams from major conferences. The only other time, last year. And the closest thing we have to a Cinderella is an SEC team with the biggest budget in college sports, that being Texas as an 11 seed. That's the state of the game right now.
But isn't this what we all wanted? We wanted no, we don't want the teams that really can't compete to be in our tournament. It was good to have them back in the day.
Well, when you say we,
I'm just saying as a whole. I'm not including
well, I would
us.
say we, maybe those of us who are basketball sickos,
Yes,
because
yes.
we want the best teams to compete for the championship.
Absolutely. Those that love like college sports, they
Right.
just want the best teams competing for that title. They don't want these other teams that really don't have a chance to be competing now.
But how many people out there are paying attention to college basketball for the first time right now? And what do those people usually love? Cinderellas. They love those stories. Your George Masons, your VCUs.
But the Cinderellas don't outnumber the actual fan that loves the game and want to see good matchups. Again, it's sort of like football. Even though from the actual aspect of playing a game, I think you have a better shot at upsetting someone in March Madness than you would in the college football playoffs, because basketball, if you're hitting, you're hitting. I don't care if you're an undersized team. If you're hitting majority of the threes you're taking, because that's what these mid-majors do. They bank on making the volume of three-pointers they shoot, and they're hoping that in that volume, we still end up making more than you. So that it's gonna allow those sort of mid-majors to stay in games, and at one point, win games. But the way things are going, because we know this for sure, two things. One, if you go to a mid-major and you're good enough, you're going to transfer out. Two, if you ain't got the money in mid-majors, you're going to get left out. And both of them happened.
Yeah.
So this is not like something oh my goodness, like the mid-majors. We knew this was going to happen. It's happening in football. They didn't make a rule just for Notre Dame. Just for Notre Dame. They're telling you, we don't want no 105 to 10 games. No, y'all get out of here. Y'all win y'all conference, y'all playing y'all own little tournament. And it's sort of getting that way, not necessarily. I don't know if it was by design or not, but maybe this tournament thought that, out of all the tournaments, we are the tournament that still can happen in. Well, you're starting to find out, no, it's not. So we do sort of classify a 9 seed or 11 seeds as Cinderellas now. We do. And that's how it's going to continue to be. Not to say that one of these mid-major teams are not going to, because in basketball, I think you only really need one guy. And if you have some other just good players, you may find yourself in the tournament beating teams that other people didn't expect you to beat. So you're going to have them, but maybe they're not going to get as far.
I just really hope that there continues to be an evolution and the mid-majors figure out a formula to where they can still
or figure out their own tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that is a factor too. Teams like Belmont didn't win their league, and so maybe the best team from these leagues wasn't always in there. Maybe these leagues will decide, look, our regular season champ needs to go.
Yeah.
And whatever we're making off of the thing, or we just decide we'll play the tournament, but we're going to decide who goes. And we've decided our league champion will go. I mean, maybe you put the regular season champion in the final. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to try to get your best team in there.
One of Dan Wolkin's points on Yahoo Sports, again, he wrote a column blaming conference realignment. Go back 10 years and look at the quality of some of the mid-major conferences in college basketball. There are a ton of good teams in those conferences, but now those conferences have been made weaker because of all of the realignment. So the conference champions are, by extension, weaker as well.
But even if you had, I can understand that theory a little, because to me, even if you have conference realignment now, back then, you know why those mid-major teams were good? Because the transfer was different. I couldn't just up and leave and go transfer. It wasn't a year-to-year, even though it really is truly a year-to-year contract, but they didn't want to put that out in the public back in the day. But now that it's year-to-year contracts, a guy or girl can transfer just about any time they want to. So that, more than anything, I believe, is what is doing these mid-majors in. Because again, two things for sure. If I'm good in a mid-major, somebody's going to give me money and I'm leaving. or I ain't got the money mid-majors, and a lot of them don't.
Here's another thing that I think is a big factor in what we're seeing, and that is the whole Ken Palm thing. And the way the committee has now gravitated towards the Ken Palm numbers to evaluate teams on predictive and efficiency, and not just who did you beat, who did you lose to. 14 of the top 17 teams ranked in the Ken Palm made the Sweet 16. So Ken Palm is somewhere going, look at me. Do I know what I'm talking about, or do I know what I'm talking about? The only teams that didn't make the Sweet 16 from the top 17, Florida, who lost to Iowa. Iowa's number 22. So a 9 seed at number 22 in the Ken Palm, you can just see, like, were they seeded correctly? I don't know. Gonzaga, number 15 in the Ken Palm, a 3 seed, lost to Texas, number 31. So Texas is still ranked still high in the Ken Palm, even though they lost a lot of games. And then finally Vanderbilt, who lost to number 13, Nebraska. So Vanderbilt, 11th overall in the Ken Palm, but still seeded 5th, by far the lowest in that group. Tennessee is number 14. They beat Virginia, who's number 18. So even though it's a, quote, upset, the 6th seed being a 3, Tennessee had better ratings than Virginia throughout the season. So it really wasn't an upset in my mind.
615-737-1025. We will get back into the NCAA tournament with our friend Joe Rexrode at 5 o'clock. He was in OKC for Vanderbilt's loss against Nebraska. He will be in Chicago for the Midwest Regional Sweet 16 and Elite 8. So we'll catch up with Rexrode at 5 o'clock. But coming up next, Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us. 615-737-1025. Speaking of Rexrode, tomorrow Robbie and Rexrode will be broadcasting live at Dunkin's grand opening of their new Franklin location at 1306 Murfreesboro Road. The restaurant will give away 100 days of free coffee to the first 100 guests in line, in store only. Guests can also enjoy Dunkin's swag giveaways throughout the celebration, and you could snap a photo with Dunkin's beloved mascot, Cuppy. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingame, 102.5 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Be sure to be listening this hour because we do have a pair of Predators tickets to give away to Saturday's home game against the Montreal Canadiens. So if you want those tickets, do not turn that dial. You have a chance to win them this hour. In the meantime, let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com and welcome in our friend Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, who is fueled by Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution. Hi, TD. How are you? TD, you there?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. There you go, TD. How are you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, I got you now. Sorry about that.
No problem. It's the magic of live radio. So, TD, at this time last year, it was a foregone conclusion that the Titans were drafting Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, it's different this year because the Titans have the number 4 pick. But based on what you have heard, which player do you think has the inside track to be the number 4 overall pick at this moment?
Yeah, I would say it's David Bailey. They need the pass rush, and he's the guy that fits the most. And you know, he's someone that I know they covet. Obviously, you have other pass rushers on the board, but David Bailey matches what they need and where they need to go. So I would say he's the top one, followed closely by Jeremiah Love.
You hear that, Derek?
Yes, I do. I do.
Derek Mason very
It would
much
have been better if he had said Jeremiah Love and then closely
followed by David Bailey.
Absolutely. It would have been better.
I completely understand that. So, Turron, you wrote a story at ESPN.com the other day talking about Wan'Dale Robinson and his new relationship with Titans quarterback Cam Ward. You wrote in the story that Brian Daboll played a part in Wan'Dale Robinson choosing to sign with the Titans in free agency. And you mentioned the creativity that Daboll showed before being fired last season when Malik Neighbors went down with injury and how they had to integrate Wan'Dale Robinson into some new situations. How do you think that could help the Titans this year with Daboll and Robinson being reunited?
Well, you know, it's going to help them a lot. And I think one of the things that you have to go back to is an issue before when we talked about problems with the offensive line, right? Or getting sacked, right? It wasn't just the offensive line. You had a bit of a lack of creativity as far as like different rub routes and different things, you know, close, splits, bunch formation to get guys open more. And I tell you what's pretty interesting. That's something that they did a lot of with the Giants and Brian Daboll. And Wan'Dale Robinson, he even said the one time that, you know, there's times where he lines up outside, but even when he's lining up outside, there's still somebody outside of him. So he's not in that space by himself. And so there's different things that they do to get him the free release. And I think if you go back, you watch the Saints game, that was a fun game to watch. I mentioned it before. And you had Alontae Taylor playing the slot. And, you know, a lot of the routes that Wan'Dale Robinson, you know, was running from that slot position with Robinson on him, you know, you had those jerk routes or whip routes and things like that. It's just a spacing thing. And they do a lot to get guys open quickly. And that's something else that he said, get open quickly and have the quarterback get rid of the ball faster. And that just helps the offensive line because it's a lot easier to protect for, you know, under 2 seconds as opposed to 3 with a lot of the longer developing routes that you saw from the team last year.
Now, TD, the Titans made a few signings over the last week. Linebacker Mohamed Dabate, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. You'll be able to better tell me. And Austin Duculis, and they re-signed Julius Chestnut. What can you tell us about the first two? We know Chestnut has been here, and was Chestnut more of a, hey, listen, if we know you got a role for this team, you're going to be a part of this team, and I guess he sort of fits the role.
Yeah, no, Chestnut would be more of a third or fourth running back and special teams contributor. In fact, that's where he had the injury before, you know, on special teams. That's where he hurt his ankle. So you have that, and he gives them the size, and it's another body to have during training camp. And, you know, he's a preseason rusher specialist. You know, he's led the league in rushing yards before in preseason. So you have that. Yeah, so that's the role he plays. He's not as much of the Natron Means like player that I jokingly referenced before with him, but he's still like a solid player. And I think you look at Austin Deculus, that's in essence, that's Ali Udo's replacement, right? He's a swing tackle. He'll probably be there on tackle eligible plays. Funny thing, a couple years ago with Houston, he recovered a ball in the end zone, and it would have been a touchdown, but they didn't rule it one. When he was with the Texans playing the Titans right there at Nissan Stadium. So you had that, and like I said, he's a swing guy. And then when you look at the linebacker, he's more of a special teams guy. He does give you coverage. You know, he's 6'4", 225. So that's definitely going to impact passing lanes, right? You know, if he has to carry any receivers or tight ends down the seam.
Now, what has been your sense of the Titans from outside of sort of this bubble here in Nashville, now that the not the preseason, but free agency has pretty much wound down, at least for the first run, and then they get into another one? But what is sort of the sense of how the Titans are looked at now based upon what they've done via free agency?
Yeah, big spenders. That's the big thing. You know, everybody looks at the money that has been spent, and that's what the focal point is. And I mean, look, like you gotta pay, especially with how the market has gone as far as the salary cap. So a lot of people, when they look at it, they like the moves. They like the Wan'Dale Robinson. They see the match, and they're trading for Jermaine Johnson. Those trades, you know, that trade worked. There are some who feel that it was a lopsided trade in the Jets' favor, but you know, it just kind of is what it is. They filled some different holes, but the question mark is still on the offensive line. I'm not overly familiar with Austin Slotman, but, you know, from what I understand and what I've seen is he's not a marquee front line type of center. He's a guy that, you know, he could start for you. I'll put it that way, but it's not something like you're like, hey, man, let's take on Quentin Williams and, you know, let's take on Aaron Donald and hey, he's going to make Jeffrey Simmons better. No, it's not that. It's going to be interesting just watching the way that they work that. And obviously the right guard situation, Kevin Zeitler, in my opinion, needs to be back in Nashville. But, I mean, Jackson Slater is a guy that was highly decorated coming out of Sac State. So you do have that. We'll see.
Turron Davenport is with us. And Turron, as you continue to prepare for the draft, which is still a few weeks away here, is there a guy in your mind that you think when they start having the pro days, they start having the workouts and things like that, that will move up the board? Because it seems like we see this every year. There's somebody that changes how we think on March 23rd by the time April rolls around.
Yeah, you know, I would be cautious about guys moving up the board this late unless it's someone that you have a new exposure to. So sometimes that happens where a guy run a fast 40 and you go back and you're like, hey, wait a minute, that actually is showing on tape, you know. But when I look at these guys that aren't really, I mean, yeah, you could say Mansour Delane. I mean, he ran that 4.38, 4.35, you know, and that's awfully impressive for a corner that's aggressive, that likes to come up and tackle. You guys saw him when LSU came here, you know, and they played Vanderbilt. You know, of course, they lost, but you know, he had a pretty solid game.
Anything else that you're looking for in the coming weeks when the Titans start bringing their people in? How do you try to evaluate who maybe is grabbing some traction and who maybe is just there for show?
Yeah, I don't really necessarily believe in bringing guys in for show. I think that's usually, you know, to get to know them. I mean, it's a true visit. I don't see them, you know, as folks that waste their time and effort bringing somebody in. So I don't think there's any show. I think, you know, obviously Jeremiah Love has been here. David Bailey will be here eventually. Bain and Keontae Scott and those guys, they had their pro day today, and Akeem Mesidor. So that's down there in Miami today. So you do have those, but I don't think anything's show. I think everything is authentic. I mean, there's interest.
What have you learned? Because let's say that it's Bailey and Love that are the two guys most considered by them. What have you learned about the makeup of both guys? I think we've all learned a lot about what they do well and where they're from and all that stuff, but the makeup of the player, what have we learned?
Yeah, I think when you look at Bailey, he's a pretty polished pass rusher. And what I've learned is that he has a well-tuned rush scheme, you know, and that he has ways that he wants to set things up. He does rely on the speed, but that speed gives him power. And then off of that, he has a spin move inside. I've heard like Dwight Freeney comparisons. I've just learned that he's a guy that's just like, he's just going to go out there raw dog and play ball. You know, as far as Jeremiah Love is concerned, you got the competitor. You know, his dad has been a driving force. And he's a guy that wants to score every time he touched the ball. I remember asking him, you know, about some of his long runs. And that's what he said, man, every time I touch it, I want to score. Like, my goal is to make it a house call. And the thing I like about him is he's able to balance that to where, like, he'll try to score, of course, but you're not seeing him press too much. You know what I mean? And the patience is still there, which is something that's a supreme characteristic of a running back.
Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation Titans reporter, has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donnie. He joins us every Monday and is fueled by Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution. TD, great stuff as always, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
All right, appreciate you guys, man. And hey, listen, go Doors tonight, man. I'll be in the building. I got to see Michaela Blake.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
And Aubrey Colvin and the Groove, man. I got to see them all. And Willie, you know what time it is come Thursday.
Oh, yeah, the Airbender. The Airbender's going to come out. We're going to forget about Edward Diaz and his decision. We got the Airbender now.
Forget about Diaz.
No more Timmy Trumpets. Let's get a new theme song. Yeah.
It's all about Devin Williams.
Thank you, TD.
Just check back with us guys in May, and you know we could be singing our sorrows, but you know
Willie's got the Mets hat on.
I do.
He's in the spirit.
Come on, I got my Vanderbilt shirt on underneath too. I'm
He's
ready
representing
for the
everything.
I'll be watching the Commodores tonight.
He's representing everything. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, so I put the grid together for the show every day, and for the upcoming segment, I have an alternate title.
I was very amused by this.
Everyone dunks on Adam. And you can do that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Preds fans, Smashville Live, presented by Gary Force Acura, returns Wednesday night at 6 p.m. on 1025 The Game. Live from Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. Meet your Predators players up close and personal. You can also get autographs and pictures. The guests this week, Ryan Ufko and Zachary LaRue. That's Ryan Ufko and Zachary LaRue this Wednesday night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue and only on 1025 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. If you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and what it means, so they will help you get it all repaired or better yet, replaced. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fuson, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Street South. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers and Music City, Indiana. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
O'Reilly stays on to the wing. Forsberg. Give and go! Saved by Knight. O'Reilly didn't get a lot on it, but he directed it to the net. Forsberg, a bull in the China shop. Turns, waits, shoots. He scores! Overtime winner! What a day for Forsberg! 3 points, and Nashville sweeps them back-to-back.
Hey, that's you, Willie Donick.
There you go, Willie.
Who was that guy? They were right near the microphones when they on the ice.
I was wondering who was screaming like
that.
That
was all of the Predators mobbing Philip Forsberg. They weren't in the booth with me. It just sounded like it. But I could hear it in my headset. I'm going, oh, nobody say anything bad. But there might have been a couple of expletives that got on the mic there. Hot mic.
My first thought was, why is Chris Mason screaming? But then I realized
it wasn't him.
It wasn't Chris Mason. It was the players on the ice. And the Predators have reason to scream because they have won 4 consecutive games, a season-long winning streak for the Predators. They're the hottest team in the NHL, longest active winning streak in the NHL.
Say that again.
The longest active winning streak in the NHL.
The other one.
They're the hottest team in the NHL right now. I see what you're doing.
I just wanted to,
Derek Mason.
I'm just saying.
And the Predators are in possession of the final wild card playoff spot in the Western Conference with 75 points, as Willie mentioned in the clip. The Predators sweep the weekend back-to-back, 4-1 at home against Vegas, 3-2 in overtime at Chicago. Yesterday, the Predators, when they beat Vegas, jumped into a playoff spot for the first time since October 25th. At one point this season, the week of Thanksgiving, when the Predators were the worst team in the NHL, they were 11 points out of the final playoff spot in the Western Conference. So credit to the Predators for crawling all the way back. It's still not over. My friends at SportLogic tell me that the Predators have a 54.9% chance of making the playoffs. So they're on the right side of it, but it's still a toss-up.
But that's why it just drives me crazy. Today it's this percent because it changes so quickly. When we were discussing this a week ago,
it's at 20, wasn't it?
I think it was in the teens, depending on what site. Adam likes to find the site where it's the lowest. So
I am partial to SportLogic because I do work for SportLogic in addition to my duties here at 102.5 The Game. I can find what it was on March 16th if you just give me a moment.
Find what it was on November 26th, too, which was like 0.001%.
And
I can
kept
do that
bringing
as well.
it up.
I can do that as well. All right, hold on. On March 16th, so 1 week ago today, it was 14.1%.
Wow. Okay, so you see what 4 games can do if you can get it in gear and play well.
But you also have to keep this in mind. This was an all-timer quote, by the way, over the weekend. Connor McDavid, star of the Edmonton Oilers, described the state of the Pacific Division as a quote-unquote pillow fight. And the Predators have been playing well. They have also been benefiting from the fact that no team in the Pacific Division seems to want to challenge them for this final playoff spot. Seattle has fallen off of a cliff. The Kings are struggling. The Sharks come in here tomorrow. They've lost 4 in a row, I believe. So the Predators have been playing well. They've also been helped, Willie, by the fact that their closest competition have all been falling apart at the same time.
I've said this all along, so this is not going to be me changing my tune now that they're above the line as opposed to below the line. We've identified this for a couple of months, that the last playoff spot was going to be taken by somebody that's not a great team. So it's been there for the taking. It's just a matter of which team fights for it, which team plays the best down the stretch and gets into that spot. And the dynamic of the Pacific Division is interesting because Nashville plays the majority of their games against teams from that division down the stretch, which we knew would help them control their own destiny. Like they would have an opportunity to go head to head with these teams. Tomorrow night is the first of those. The Sharks are the last team they have not played. They've played all 31 other teams. They have 3 games in the last 12 against the Sharks, a team that is right there on that bubble with them. So they control, and they have 2 of those games out of the 3 in Nashville. So it's there in front of them. By no means are they home free, but I would just like to document the story that I've been saying all along is this is fun. This is a great journey. This is a fun story. So don't get caught up in, are they going to make the playoffs? Are they not going to make the playoffs? Hey, if they make the playoffs, they're going to be a big underdog. Is it worth it? They're in the mushy middle. They need to break it down. They need the good player. Enjoy the ride. This has been an incredible ride. They could have mailed it in. Let's go back to the days that you're talking about, Adam, when they were 0.001%, right? Let's go through just a couple of the dates. Right before they went to Sweden, they go to Madison Square Garden and get smoked by the Rangers. Before they board the plane to Stockholm, they got massacred. The only bright spot, Matt Wood scored a hat trick. They couldn't even celebrate it because they were getting beat so bad. Like, poor Matt Wood, he scored 3 goals, and it's like, hey, good job, man. Boy, we got a butts kick tonight.
And it's a long plane ride.
Then they win the first game in Sweden. Great moment for Steven Stamkos, who hadn't done a whole lot, but I felt good for him because, like, oh, here's a guy that's struggling. He's going through it. At least he has this moment. They turn around the next day and get lit up by Pittsburgh. They give up 3 goals in the first half of the first period, so they come home on a downer. Then about a week later, less than a week later, they get beat 8-3 by Florida. Just got completely embarrassed. And that's November 26th, where they were 6-12-4. You had Frank Saravelli, who came out with the report right there that said Nashville's locker room is, quote, the most toxic in the league. And what did Barry Trotz say on our show?
Well, we can't repeat it.
We can't really repeat it because he broke he committed a violation. I hope we beeped it out when he said it. I don't know if we did or not.
We did.
But
I did.
He said it was BS, basically. But that was on everybody's mind. They go to Detroit right before Thanksgiving in a game that, Derek, you probably remember, the Red Wings always play the night before Thanksgiving, and the Lions always play on Thanksgiving. So it's a big week in Detroit. The Predators win that game. They spend Thanksgiving Day in Chicago, where they were yesterday. And they had a Thanksgiving dinner, and that was what Barry Trotz used when he was counteracting that report by Saravelli about the toxic surroundings. They had a great time. They told stories, and you could tell the guys were still together. They hadn't lost the room. They beat the Blackhawks the next day, 2 in a row, and they started climbing up the standings from there, and here they are. That's a great story. Regardless of what happens the rest of the way. Now that they're here, you have to try to carry through and get that spot. But I just admire the heck out of the coaching staff for hanging in there because they had those guys fired about 3 times, right? The media and the fans. They were done. Get them out of here, right?
Yep.
They're like cats with 9 lives, right? They're still coming back. But they never lost the room. And that room would be pretty easy to lose with the veterans, the guys that have won as much as those guys have won, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Marchessault. Those guys could have folded up the tent and said, get me out of here. But the veterans stayed tuned in. They didn't give up the ship. They told everybody, not only do I not want to leave, I want to stay here. We can still make it. Even though everybody around them was saying, it's over. Forget this. This is a sinking ship. They need to break it down. So let's just admire the story for now. And then let's just see what happens in the next 12 games. A lot can happen in those games.
All wonderful points, Willie. And I don't mean that condescendingly. All wonderful points. I heard Robbie Stanley say this morning. I believe I said it on Friday as well, and I want to reiterate it here. Because I know a lot of you think that I'm the Grinch that stole Christmas Predators version, and that I want all the worst to happen to them. That could not be further from the truth. The Predators can't make drastic changes right now. The trade deadline was more than 2 weeks ago. The new general manager has not been hired. And that new GM could decide this summer that the Predators need to rebuild. I still have skepticism about the direction of the franchise, but nothing can be done about it right now. So let's see where this goes. However, I do have one request for Predators fans, if I may. Enjoy this, as Willie said so eloquently. Enjoy this. But please, please, please be realistic. This team is not the second coming of the 2019 St. Louis Blues. That was a once-in-a-generation run. This team probably isn't even the second coming of the 2017 Predators, who were a better team than this one. Those Predators were considered a Stanley Cup contender in the preseason. These Predators were expected to be one of the worst teams in the league before this season started. So to reiterate what Willie said, have fun. I love playoff hockey. I love when the weather gets warm and there are meaningful games to be played. I covered a lot of meaningful games for the Predators. It's my favorite time of the year. So have fun, but please keep things in perspective. That's all I ask.
I don't think no one's saying this is the second coming of the
Yet.
2017.
Yet.
I think, like Willie said, just enjoy what they are doing. Because this is ultimately, from a player standpoint, this could ultimately be a turning point in his whole franchise, period. Not making those moves that many thought he should have made, the trade deadline. And those veteran guys showing the younger guys that I want to be here. You know what affects? Losing doesn't necessarily affect the young guys, because the young guys are thinking like years out, we get this straight. You know what affects young guys? It's how the older guys act in the losing. That's what affects those young guys. And when those older guys, Stamkos and those guys, we want to be here. This is where I want to be. That sends a vibration through the team. And I don't think many people truly understand that part. Like, yeah, they may not be the greatest team, but sometimes the greatest teams don't always make it to that ultimate goal. And I'm not saying that the Nashville Predators are going on and win the Stanley Cup. They may not make the playoffs. Hell, they may get in and lose in the first round. But it's what to me, the key to all of this is what those veterans decided to do and how that vibrated through those young guys, and see the way that they're playing now.
I do think that is for people that are just maybe grasping this story now. Maybe you wrote the Predators off for a while, or maybe this is the time of year where you start paying more attention to hockey because you're getting close to the postseason. You're kind of like, okay, what about our local team? They did trade 4 guys at the trade deadline. They were sellers. And that could have, I think, sunk the ship, right? They had to remobilize when they were saying, hey, we're still in this thing. Oh, now you're taking away 4 of our veterans? Now what are we supposed to do? They could have panicked there. But they didn't. They stayed with it. And this is the bonus for all of you that are saying you got to look at the future. They are getting to play these games, and all of the prospects that are ready to play at the NHL level now are getting in there every night. So that's a great caveat to this run that may or may not end up in a playoff berth. Every game is the biggest game of the year. So when Ryan Ufko or Zach LaRue or Reed Schaefer or Fedor Svechkov, who just signed a two-year contract, they just signed LaRue to a 2-year contract. These are the next guys that are going to be the nucleus. They're getting valuable game experience now in games that really do mean something. You can feel it when it's out there. And if they were fortunate enough to make the playoffs, they will get valuable playoff experience, win or lose. So there is a long-term benefit. And who are they learning from? Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, guys that they could have traded. But they know what an important force those guys are, not only what they do on the ice, not only what they do on the ice playing with younger players, but the example that they are setting. That is valuable. So to me, these are the things that I've been saying all along that would be the benefit of what they've done. And give them credit. They are making it relevant.
Let's go to David on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. David, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Just a quick comment. I mean, and to your point about enjoy the ride, I just hope – I know they're not going to win the Cup, but to go to a playoff game is like no other experience. I remember going those several years ago, the level of decibels at Bridgestone Arena is so loud you can't even hear the person next to you. And the excitement is just, like I said, no other. And I just want to experience that again. And I think it just goes a long way, even for the players, to just have that level of achievement and it just gets us going again for the next season. Anyway, that's my quick comment. Enjoy the show. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, David. Let's go to Michigan in the Borough on our phone line. Michigan, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Willie, that Mets hat looks wonderful. I'm wearing a distressed Braves hat, which takes on an entirely new meaning today. It was distressed before today, but now it's extra distressed. You guys hit on a lot of things I wanted to say. Adam, you and I are of two different minds about where we want the franchise to go, but it's a wonderful thing to kind of feel this. And the thing I wanted to ask you guys, I don't think it's going to happen because Utah's just got a bigger lead, but let's say they stay hot, right? Let's say they keep beating up the pillow fighters, as Connor McDavid so aptly called the Pacific Division. If you can get by Utah, and this is something I really want to hear what Willie thinks about this, with the core of guys that we have, right, who have some real skins on the wall, some real notches on the belt of playoff experience, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Yossi, Philip Forsberg, what have you, all the way down the line, would you feel better, Adam, about their chances to make a run if they're playing in Anaheim, who looks like they're going to win the Pacific and has, I think, very few people who've played in meaningful April, May, June games for the most part, versus going up against the Avalanche, which I know looks like a suicide mission. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think we'll be the 2019 Blue Jackets, but I do think we have a better puncher's chance than some people think we do. And I'm just really loving this, guys. You saw the smile on my face Saturday, Adam. It was a great time. It's just awesome for the season ticket holders that really love the team, and look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Michigan. Good question. We will answer it on the other side. 615-737-1025. Your reaction on the Predators.
Dunk on Adam, 737-1025. Dunk on Adam, 615-737-1025.
Also, respectfully dunk on Adam.
I mean, because of Derek, people on the text line are talking about how unfunny I am.
I think you're funny, Adam.
Well, apparently our listeners don't.
You just don't look funny.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what will change your tune. A pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Montreal Canadiens. If you want those tickets, you need to call and tell the whole world that I'm funny. Just kidding. If you want those tickets, be caller number 3 right now at 615-737-1025. Caller number 3 will win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on Montreal this Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena, a 6 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. Hockey night in Canada, of course. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. We do have our winner in our ticket giveaway here, so you can stop calling unless you want to just make a comment and dunk on Adam. Please do. 615-737-1025.
Or tell people that I'm funny.
He would love to hear that.
It is my birthday tomorrow.
Yeah. Wish him a happy birthday if you like, while you dunk on him. All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Stop letting that high-interest debt weigh you down. Pay it all off in days with Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan. I've been telling you about these guys for years. I've worked with them myself. I've had a great experience with them. It's a completely hassle-free way to cash out your home equity with no appraisals, no paperwork, no waiting. That's what I've enjoyed about it the most. It's a streamlined process. There's not a lot of legwork and paperwork and all that stuff. It's so much more streamlined. The Rapid Equity Loan uses AI-driven tech to get you approved for cash in as little as 1 day with a rate that's at a 3-year low. So jump on that. Call Loan Pronto now. See how much you can save. No hard credit pull up front. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. A+ rated by the BBB. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Joe Rexroad will join us at the top of the hour. He's headed to
Rex.
Memorial Gym for Vanderbilt women's basketball as the women's NCAA tournament continues. By the way, 94.9 The Fan is your home for Vanderbilt women's basketball. The second-seeded Commodores take on seventh-seeded Illinois tonight. Pregame at 5:45, tip-off at 6. Coverage is presented by Ponte Law. Injured in an accident, call Ponte Law at 615-244-4321. Ponte Law, justice for all. We are talking Predators, and I want to thank Alan Franklin for saying, Adam, you are funny, and we love you. Great show as always. Loyal listener.
See, there you go. Everybody's not jumping on you.
The check is in the mail, Al. Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com and welcome in Jason. Jason, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
No problem. I just want to say I agree with you. It seems like every year we are just barely making it into the net, and we're never good enough to actually do any damage. And so we're never bad enough to get an actual high draft pick to rebuild, but we're just good enough to kind of be there at the end. We go in the first round and then we're knocked out, and then everything's like, okay, well, that's what we do. It's like we've got to stop the pattern, right?
Thank you for the call, Jason. And Jason, I think, speaks for a section of the Predators fan base, and I understand it because I think I side more with them than with the other side, which is at some point, the Predators have to hope for more than sneaking into the playoffs and seeing what happens. And as I said previously, maybe the new GM comes in and sees it the way that Jason does, that I do, and that new GM tells Bill Haslam, hey, the team made the playoffs. That's great. I think this team needs to take a step back in order to be truly competitive again. But we won't know that until the offseason.
Well, okay. In saying that, why do you think okay, if this was football or basketball, I would say, okay, you can do a tear down and you get the right player. You go from being the worst team to possibly even making it into the Super Bowl. So it's or the NBA championship game. So it's easier in those sports because those players are typically they're going to play immediately and help you immediately. So it's easier to sort of do it in those sports. It's harder to do it in hockey, but let's just take that premise that some people do have. What if they've already been doing that? If you look at some of the moves, because we always say what? They're getting the draft picks and they got to let these draft picks develop. So now you're starting to see some of these young guys play well. I don't understand why it's at least, over the last course of a year or two that I've heard that you got to tank in order to be that team. What if the moves that they made years ago, the acquisitions that they got, meaning draft picks, they drafted those people and now they're developing. So what if it's starting to happen now?
That is a good question, Derek. Here is how I would answer that, and Willie can chime in as well. Let's look at the Predators' opponent tomorrow, the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks have not made the playoffs since 2019. I believe, Willie, correct me if I'm wrong here, they lost to the Blues in the conference final when the Blues went on to win the Stanley Cup, the miraculous Stanley Cup win for the Blues. So 2019 was the last time the San Jose Sharks made the playoffs. But with all of the losing that the Sharks have done, they hit it big in the draft lottery. A couple of years ago, they drafted Macklin Celebrini with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And Celebrini has been outstanding this season. Let me tell you something about Macklin Celebrini. Macklin Celebrini is 19 years old. He is on pace to finish this season with 116 points. There are only 2 players in NHL history as teenagers who have finished with more points in a season than 116. Wayne Gretzky and Sidney Crosby. Now, the Sharks could miss the playoffs again. They are 5 points back at the Predators, right, Willie, entering the game tomorrow?
Yep, one game in hand.
5 points.
3 head-to-head matchups.
Right, so a lot can change. But the Sharks could miss the playoffs again. But I had this conversation with someone the other day, and this person told me, I would rather be the Sharks than the Predators. And I said, why? And they said, because the Sharks, it feels like it's the beginning of something, while the Predators feels like it's more the end of something. Because the Predators, their top players, Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, they're in their 30s. They're closer to the end of their careers than the beginning. So I think where people like me point to, hey, you got to be bad, is historically the likeliest way you get a player like Macklin Celebrini,
which was the first player in the draft, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Is to be that bad. It's
Okay,
a crapshoot. But
absolutely. So you're gonna crapshoot your season every year in hopes to hitting black one time.
Right.
And
So
you may not hit it.
that's what I was going to follow up with on the other side of the coin. And yes, they have Celebrini, and they are on their way. There's no question with him and some of the other young pieces that are not as good, but they're good. I still think there are ways from championship level. I don't know how many years that's going to be. 4 more years, 5 more years. Maybe it's quicker just because of how great Celebrini is. And by the way, get to Smashville tomorrow night because you're going to see this kid, and
he's incredible.
And it's a big, big game.
Yes.
I mean, this is the atmosphere. These are the games that are memorable. It took the Sharks being bad for 5 years before they got Celebrini. They had other high picks in there that aren't anywhere close to where he is. They're good, but if you're just it might take you 3 or 4 shots at a top 5 pick before you get that really special player. So is that worth it? In the meantime, Nashville's made the playoffs. Those fans, this is what I'm going to say. I know some fans feel the way that guy who just texted did. I know they do. And that's completely legitimate. It's a legitimate argument. But I know those fans have stuck in there. The fans at Bridgestone Arena, as bad as it got in November, I can't remember a game other than the night where they lost 8-3, where there was really boos and just get these guys out of here kind of stuff. The attendance has been very good, and when I watch the reaction as the team has made this comeback, I see a lot of fans that are having a great time. Those are memories and moments that stay with you forever, right? Regardless of how the story ends. That's to me, that's what is enjoyable about a journey. I don't like when I say, well, I'll see you in 5 years. In the next 5 years, we'll just endure and watch us lose. We need to lose. We need to lose. Take the team they played yesterday, the Blackhawks. Every year, they're like, this could be the year. Hey, we got Connor Bedard. Hey, we got the second pick last year. We got the 4th pick 2 years ago. We got the second pick 3 years ago. This could be it. They're 31st in the league. It's been a decade since they've been relevant. Maybe it'll be worth it. They are getting better. But there's still a long way from that and even making the playoffs and then making a run in the playoffs. Is it worth that?
But
that's the question I've always asked myself, because it's not like it's the only way to build a championship team.
But that's why I say it's like we talk about the teams that did it, but we don't talk about the years that they spent bad. We just say, well, they got that guy. Well, how long were they bad before they got that guy? And it sort of varies from team to team.
And Chicago has kept their fans because they have great fans. I have to say, they have stuck with it. They had a full building yesterday, despite the fact that they're sinking.
But that team has 4 championships under his belt.
Right. The Sharks, on the other hand, they have had some bleak home atmospheres over the last 5 years. I don't know how much money they've lost in trying to win the lottery and get the pick and get Celebrini. I'm curious what the atmosphere looks like when the Predators go out there in early April for that matchup out there. It's getting better. They should be excited, but they have had to endure for a long time. And not every building is a fun place to be during those lean years.
I realized before we go to break, that we never answered Michigan's question about the second wild card spot versus the first wild card spot. Quickly, if the Predators have, in my opinion at least, if the Predators have any shot of making noise in the Stanley Cup playoffs, if they make it, they must overtake Utah for the first wild card playoff spot. The Utah Mammoth have a 5-point lead over the Predators. The Mammoth have played one more game. They've played 71. The Predators have played 70. If the Predators cross over, right now, they would be playing Anaheim. And Anaheim, good for them. That's a young team. They've got veterans on that team, Willie, who have been around. But that is a young team. That this is not the Anaheim Ducks that the Predators played in the playoffs in 2017. This is not a veteran-heavy team. It's a young team. So could the Predators theoretically upset the Ducks? Sure. You saw the Golden Knights on Saturday. The Golden Knights are in some serious trouble.
They got a clutch win last night in Dallas to recover. But they've been snake bit. I still think they, at the end of the day, are going to win that division. I could be wrong. Anaheim has spent, for example, all that time, basically since the Predators beat them in 2017 in the Western Final to go to the Cup Final. Anaheim has been in a rebuild since then. They might have snuck into the playoffs the next year, if I remember correctly, Adam. Maybe, maybe not. But it's taken them a long time to get to this point, and they do have some talent, and they've now started to sprinkle in veterans. They're good. But that is an interesting point. We were discussing this last night on the way back from Chicago. Who do you want to win the game between the Mammoth and the Kings last night? Of course, it was a 3-point game. It was a worst-case scenario. But the Mammoth, I think that if you look at their team, they're a good team. Another team that's rebuilt for a long, long time. A long, long time. They're good. If you could catch them and overtake them in wild card one, I do think it sets you up with a much, much more realistic draw to make some noise.
615-737-1025. We'll get back to the Predators. But coming up next, Joe Rexroad from Robbie and Rexroad will join the program. He was in Oklahoma City for Vanderbilt's game against Nebraska. We'll ask him about that and the rest of the tournament coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Let's go to our phone line driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in our very own Joe Rexroad, who's on his way to Memorial Gym to see the Commodores take on the Fighting Illini in the women's NCAA tournament. Joe, no rest for the weary, huh?
No, I mean, I raised my hand and said, let me at it. I want to write about this team. So come back from Oklahoma City, get out to this, and then off to Chicago in a little bit here for the Sweet 16.
So you were in
best time of year.
It is indeed. You were in Oklahoma City for Vanderbilt's heartbreaker against Nebraska. On TV, it sounded like the most heavily partisan, neutral court crowd I have ever heard. So describe it for us, and how much of an effect do you think it had on the game?
Yeah, no, I think it was the most I've seen. I mean, I've seen Michigan State's 2000 team played at the Palace of Auburn Hills, and these were 2 home games against Syracuse and Iowa State. But like even Iowa State still brought they brought more than like their parents section. Like they brought a pretty good throng. Like when they made plays, they made some noise, you know. And look, I mean, the thing about this arena is Houston is the same distance to Oklahoma City as Lincoln, Nebraska. They're both about 6-hour drives. Houston has known all year it was going to be there. I mean, you know, it's going to be a 1 or a 2, maybe a 3. They're going to be in Oklahoma City. They had like 800 people, 1,000 maybe, like that, you know. And then, you know, a lot of the other schools just didn't have a lot. So the Nebraska fans, the same distance from Houston fans, not knowing for sure they'd be there, hopeful. You know, at times they look like they might be a 2 or a 3 that would lock them in there, but not knowing for sure. They obviously had the place bought up. And yeah, again, I've seen home games, but usually there's at least one other team that has a chunk. And in this case, the anchor of the other pod just didn't show up. I don't think they have a huge fan base. Frankly, as an aside, I don't think that Houston playing in Houston is going to be the unbelievable advantage some people think it will be. We'll see. I bet you Illinois has people in that building. But no, to your point, Adam, it felt more like just like a huge conference January home game, you know, where every call is just viciously booed that goes against, you know, the team. And it was overwhelming, which made, to me, Vanderbilt's second half run all that more impressive because they really did a lot to quiet that crowd with how tough they were and the shot making that they had. And of course, the greatness of Tyler Tanner.
Speaking of Tyler Tanner, give us your perspective of his half-court heave to potentially win the game. And your colleague at The Athletic, John Hollinger, wrote that he didn't love the design of the play. He wished that Tanner would have gone on what he called a banana cut to build up some momentum to perhaps get closer to the basket for a better shot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because I got in there and sort of put a comment into John on and he had a fair criticism of Mark Byington on that previous possession. I think at some point it's so discombobulated, burn a timeout, pop a timeout and say, okay, boom, boom, we're running this screen for, you know, Tyler Nickel or Tanner or whatever, and this is going to be the play. You know, let's do a sideline out of bounds and try to get a shot. So I think that's fair. But some of what John said also was like that they should have done something other than the half-court shot. I don't disagree with like the banana, you know, that's fine. I mean, you get a little more momentum, you might get a little closer. But, I mean, Tyler Tanner is obviously very good at this. You know, I mean, I think that was based on that, the Missouri game, there was another game this year too where he almost hit one. I think with that amount of time, I think that's the right call rather than try to do a Leitner to hit or a Hill to Leitner kind of play. So, I mean, look, yeah, and as far as my perspective, Adam, yeah, like if you watch the play, you can probably see the back of my head. Like I was directly lined up with that rim. So I'm like sitting there and it's just like, you know, it's a split second, but you're like, oh my God, he just hit one of the greatest shots of all time. And then it pops out and it's half agony reaction. The Nebraska players are about to fall to the floor, you know, I mean, they really are. And then of course Tanner does because it pops out. So very reminiscent, I would say, and you know this one, Adam, of Gordon Hayward.
Yes, I
in
mentioned
Indy
that earlier.
in the championship. Yes, very. Although I actually think this shot was much more like halfway down than even the Hayward one was.
Now, Joe, we've talked about the margins here with this Nebraska and Vanderbilt game. And, that could have been one of the margins. I think if you look at it, Vandy not dominated the margins, but they won the margins for the most part. One, they didn't win with the free throws. But in listening to Coach Byington, it seems like to me it was a coach that was disappointed for his team, but disappointed in the way he may have handled certain situations, because we talked about Nebraska's coach going to a zone when Vandy was on their little run and sort of slowed the game down. What did Byington do to counteract that?
Yeah, and I think the big quote, he said, you just wish you could have one play back. And to me, that's the big one, right? I mean, yes, I think Fred Hoiberg's switch to that zone was a very good switch. It slowed Vandy down. They were carving them up at that point. I mean, I think they had Nebraska on their heels. They had Nebraska gassed, and then guys are hitting shots all over the floor. Even with Duke Miles not hitting his shots that night, you get the McLaughlin in the corner, you get Kerricky in the corner, you get Tyler Nickel hitting a couple bombs, and all of a sudden, and then if you let up at all, Tanner is by you and he's at the rim. I mean, so it was a good move by Hoiberg. I don't think that most of Vanderbilt's possessions against the zone I thought were fine. I mean, it took them a little bit longer, but mostly they still got good shots. And in fact, they did move Nebraska back into man at one point during that last stretch. One of those late possessions, they switched back to man after Vanderbilt had scored, I think, 2 straight times on the zone. So, I mean, I think it just comes down to that second to last possession where it's just kind of a mess, and Chandler Bing gets it in the middle, and he just sort of throws something up, almost like he thought it was like there was still like 2 seconds of the shot. Like at some point in that possession, that's where boom, pop the timeout. But that's my only real, criticism. I mean, they, like I think, and look, it was a mistake by players in a scramble situation after the miss, because actually 3 guys ran to Sanford, and of course, at least one of those guys had to have bet on Braden Frager, and instead he just cuts through the middle of the lane and scores. So, that's a player mistake. But, I mean, overall, I don't think the other stuff to me I thought was fine from Byington.
Now, could you get a sense early in that game? Because, coming into the tournament, I know we stressed that Nickel had to be the guy that sort of stretches the defense. He was shooting extremely well first half of the season. Second half sort of tailed off a little bit. But if they were going to get far, it was going to be Nickel that had to step up. And he's pretty much stepped up for them, or at least in that game. But it was Miles that didn't hold up his end of the bargain. Could you get a sense early that he wasn't going to be a factor in this game?
Well, I mean, both of those guys, Miles and Nickel, struggled in the first half, right? I mean, I don't remember what they were. I think they might have been like 1 for 10 combined or something like that. So it was like, oh man, like you're basically like, I was kind of like, okay, Vanderbilt being, I think they were down 5, right? I was like, that's actually kind of amazing, considering those 2 not hitting shots. Of course, Tanner was really wide. Tanner had 15 and he kept him in the game. But yeah, Miles still made some key plays in this game, but he had some wide open, clean looks in the second half. And you could see, that confidence vacates a little bit, and you're a little bit off. But I'll tell you what, D-Mace, I mean, to me, if there's a stat from this game that really means more than anything, it's 11 for 19 from the foul line. Yeah. I mean, you can't, and that's, I believe, 2 front ends of 1-and-1s. So really, that's like giving away 10 points you should have had. And with this team in the high 70s, you certainly would have expected to have 5, 6, 7 of those points, right? And so that's game to me, and it's just one of those weird things. Like this tournament, teams just do out of character things all the time. So for all the fight and grit and that they showed, I mean, that's just one of those things you look back on and say, man, like you just can't have that in a game like that.
Joe Rexroad is with us from The Athletic. Joe, the free throws was the biggest stat, I think, for sure. What was your sense after the game, just your feel? Because I'm guessing this will be something that is going to be thought about for a while before a decision is actually made. But Do you think Tyler Tanner, in this climate, being a local kid, program that he's helped resurrect, probably could, you could make a lot of money. He could use another year to get bigger and stronger. What do you think the chances are that he comes back to Vanderbilt as opposed to maybe throwing his hat in the NBA ring?
Well, I think it's like 50-50 on, something around that. I think it's a fascinating decision. He absolutely needs to get bigger and stronger. And also this is an absurd year for the NBA draft. So I could talk to him about, obviously if you're Vanderbilt, make the case, but even like, if your agent, his agent trying to look at this, it's like, okay, so you're 10 pounds heavier. You're that much better because of it. You're finishing through contact better, all those things. You're defending better. And you're not in a draft class with Acuff and Peterson and Flemings and on, right? I mean, that I think is a compelling case. You always have the injury concern too. And he was very good all weekend. I think he probably got it every time I was around him. He got asked, in some form or fashion. It's like, yeah, I have no idea. And of course he's going to take his time. Now I think it certainly makes sense for him to take advantage of the opportunity to, you said throw your head. You can throw your head in and still come back, right? And I think he should definitely do that. Go and get fully evaluated. If you get in and play a little bit, then you can kind of see where you size up. I mean, I have little doubt he's going to be, an NBA player. I mean, he is small. I mean, he's to me, for him to flourish in that league, as good of a 3-point shooter as he is, he needs to become even more lethal from long distance, to really be a guy who, is more than like a backup point guard in the NBA. So yeah, look, I think there's right now, if I was forced to guess, I would guess he's back here playing for Vanderbilt next year, but that's not based on any sort of information or like that. It's just, I think and again, this also means Vanderbilt investing and making it worth his while, which they'd be crazy not to do. But that would be my guess. But I think it's a really fascinating, really close call on that one.
So, Joe, you've been watching all the games of the tournament, as we all have here. I know I'm the old guy sometimes, and I know the game evolves. But the leniency of the traveling just drives me crazy. I know they adjusted the rule and probably with good intent, but when you do that, the unintended consequences, each player is going to say, well, they didn't call traveling when I did this. So now let me see if I can take an extra step, or let me switch my pivot foot one more time and see if they call it. And the refs don't call it. And there was a blatant double dribble even in a runaway fast break where the referees have gone NBA and just say, do whatever you want. Take 7 steps, 8 steps, whatever you want. You want to dribble with 2 hands, even though that's the first thing you learn when you learn how to play basketball. You can't dribble the ball with 2 hands. They've got to have a discussion about this, don't they?
Yeah, well, obviously that play, which is funny because that was on the other basket for me. I completely missed that. I saw people talking about it after the game, and I'm like, what the heck did I miss? And then, you see the replay, and you're like, oh, geez, that is bad. I mean, that one to me is just sort of a weird miss, Like, I don't know exactly.
Right. So put that in a separate category. But the plays in the lane where a guy goes into the lane, switches his pivot feet, takes an extra, what they call the gathering step. And by the end of the play, he looks worse than Patrick Ewing ever looked in the 90s for playing for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because obviously the Euro step is a thing. And so there are plays that look awkward now that, as long as you release it before that pivot foot comes down, you can do. So fine. I mean, if that's what you're going to – I'm fine with that. I agree, though. I do think that maybe it has bled into letting some easy shuffles that you should be calling go. And it shouldn't be. I mean, that should be its own separate category, right? You establish a pivot foot and you just simply shuffle it or you move it. Well, that's travel. And I agree. It's funny, though, Will, I did spend a lot of years – also watching college basketball and saying, guys, like, we are taking a little flow out if we're going to get that ticky-tack with traveling calls. Like, I mean, there's probably a middle ground from now to how it has been in the past, where, again, especially if you were watching college basketball and comparing it to the NBA, right, where it's like, sometimes, like, seeing these incredible players do incredible things, like, you go ahead and let a little half step go here and there, But yeah, I agree. Like they have to talk about this.
But they're being coached. They're being coached now how to take advantage of it. It's not fair to the defender. It's not just in the lane with post moves, but there are guys that get running starts. When you start with the ball, you catch the ball, you take a couple steps before the ref even is paying attention. And you see what I'm saying? Like they're being coached and taught how to do it. And it's like the extra shuffle step to get behind the 3-point line. They've got to bring it back in. They've got to recalibrate.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think a huge change for the better has been taking away the flopping. Like like now it's basically you can get a charge if you are the on-ball defender and he puts his elbow into you or lowers his shoulder. But this whole sliding in at the last second that was like Bo Ryan and John Beeline teams used to that was like their primary defensive strategy. I'm really glad that's out of the game. I would still say number one for me though, Willie, is the appeal crap has to end.
Oh, that's another one.
We finally got a challenge system.
So stupid.
We finally got a challenge system to cut down the time, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, let me just appeal stuff. And I think that there was a hook and hold 5 minutes ago. Like that has to be part of the challenge system moving forward.
Yeah,
it's like we finally got away. Yeah, so
Joe,
that's number one on my list.
Before we let you go, thought on Tennessee. A good win against Virginia yesterday. Another one that had some of those calls that you're just talking about. The shove technical on Virginia I thought was a terrible call. But that aside, I think Tennessee deserves a lot of credit for getting to the Sweet 16.
No doubt. Yeah, and by the way, there was a Nate Ament shuffle in the lane that they didn't call too. That was to your point there. Yeah. But no, big time. I mean, Tennessee, you're talking 4 years in a row for Rick Barnes. I remember 4 years ago that loss to Michigan. And it's like, man, Rick he just underachieves in March. Like it's just what it is, man. Like, what are you gonna do? And here we are 4 years later, and it's Tennessee, Houston, and Alabama, the only three teams in college basketball that have been to the Sweet 16 4 straight years. And by the way, Rick, of course, going for a third straight Elite Eight. So really, I think an excellent job. I have my questions about whether they can beat Iowa State because Tennessee is a little turnover prone, and my goodness, does Iowa State force them. And if they get Joshua Jefferson back, I think that's a national championship caliber team. But to beat Virginia, to be a 3 seed, and again, that's overachieving by seed, which is something that Rick did not do a lot in his previous time before Tennessee at Texas and things like that. It's awfully impressive.
Joe, I know you're excited about covering the Midwest region, Michigan versus Alabama, Tennessee versus Iowa State. But is there a little part of you that's jealous that you're not going to D.C. to see Michigan State versus UConn and St. John's versus Duke?
Oh, 100%. I'd trade if I could. If anybody would trade with me, I'd do it. I'm going to get to see a lot of friends and family in Chicago. But, yeah, that is the absolute banger regional with those two games. And what really stinks is it's the same night as my games, too.
Yes.
I'm sitting there streaming. Tough.
Hey, Joe, let's end on a lighter note. Can you give your firsthand account of the person that texted your show and talked about Adam's glasses this morning?
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Remind me, Vingan, because Vingan gets on the text line and starts going. I'm like, Vingan, you can't text during our show.
Yeah, I went on the text line at like 6:30 a.m. That my glasses remind him of George Costanza wearing female frames on an episode of Seinfeld. I was very hurt by that. I was very hurt by that. But you know what? That's okay.
Well,
that means they love you, Adam. They're thinking about you.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they didn't say, Adam, those hands are so beautiful, you could be a hand model like George Costanza.
That is true.
But alas, they went to the glasses.
That is true. Joe Rexroad has been our guest on D-Mace Vingan Adonik. Of course, you can hear him every morning here on 102.5 The Game from 6 to 9 a.m. with Robbie Stanley. Joe, enjoy the game tonight at Memorial Gym. Safe travels to Chicago, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, boys. See you later.
615-737-1025. We'll continue the NCAA tournament conversation. We'll look ahead to the Sweet 16. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's look ahead to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. And let's start with Tennessee. Tennessee defeats Virginia yesterday to advance to the Sweet 16 for the fourth year in a row under Rick Barnes. Tennessee will take on Iowa State, a 9:10 p.m. Central tip-off in Chicago. Joe Rexrode will be there. And Iowa State, despite missing its best player, Joshua Jefferson, demolished Kentucky yesterday. Yeah. Kentucky got off to a great start. I was in studio here doing Predators pregame and postgame. Connor Newt, noted Kentucky fan, was producing, and he was loving it until he wasn't. And, of course, now it's led to tough questions about Mark Pope, because we know one thing about Kentucky fans, they're never satisfied.
I really feel for the Kentucky fans in the coming years, because it's never going to be what it used to be. So if your standard continues to be what it is, which is championship or it's a bad year, you're going to be disappointed a lot.
Hey, how's Coach Carroll doing?
Twisting the knife. D-Mace twisting it.
I know that's what some people are thinking. They're watching it with a side eye.
And that will be a great game, by the way.
It will
Arkansas versus Arizona.
That's going to be a good one.
That's going to be
I'm giving Arkansas
a hell of a game. Well, when you've got Darius Acuff, you
got a chance.
You always got a chance. That'll be interesting to see. But it would be something, Willie, if this Tennessee team, which I think we like, tell me if you think this is an appropriate description. This Tennessee team is the least talented Tennessee team of the four that have made the Sweet 16 under Rick Barnes in a row. Would you agree with that?
I think so, yes. So not by much, but it's a slight level down.
They had better shooters.
Nate Ament is probably the best player, talent-wise, natural talent, that Barnes has had in this run. But I do think collectively, this is the least talented Vols team that Barnes has had during this stretch of 4 consecutive Sweet 16. So it would be something if this was the team that did something and made it further in the NCAA tournament.
I agree, but I would say what they have and what I think a Rick Barnes team always has is they've got that real hard-nosed edge to their game. Like that's what I've always admired, Derek, about Michigan State's teams. Like it is a prerequisite. You are not putting on that jersey if you are not tough as nails. And that's why it is fun to watch. Michigan State, they look the same every year.
Yeah.
Their team has the same makeup every year. I think Tennessee's got some of that under Barnes. I know people who are Tennessee fans, it's just like the Kentucky fans. You want more, right? Sweet 16. Well, we were there last year, so we got to go Final 8. Well, we've been there. We got to go Final 4. I get that, but you have to understand that when you have somebody who's a really good coach, and Barnes is, you take the good. I think what Tennessee has done to get to the Sweet 16 that they are not reliable on each night over the course of a season is they're hitting the shots. It is such a shot-making game. And for them to shoot the ball the way they have, 50% from 2, 8 for 19, from 3, 42%, that's Tennessee's going to beat most teams when they shoot the ball like that. But they don't do that every night.
No, they don't. But I would say this may be the biggest team that UT has had in those runs. May not be necessarily the most skilled team or the best team, because those teams to me had legitimate shooters on the outside. But this may be the biggest team when you're talking about their front line. You know, those 3 guys are 6'10" and above. So this may be the biggest team. But if UT continues to shoot well from outside, they pose a problem because of their length.
Yes.
They play really good defense. It's can they shoot well from the outside? If they shoot well from the outside, then you can see them possibly beating Iowa State, which is a really good team. I watched that second half. They dominated Kentucky. It was just like they shouldn't even been on the court. It was boys against men. That's the way it seemed. If UT goes in and they shoot well from outside with their 3 big guys in that front court, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat them.
This is an example. This is what Tennessee does well, but also when we're talking about one game. So it's a pretty close game. Tennessee, Virginia, it's going back and forth. Fun game. Jakari White for Virginia on the season, 43% from 3. Good shooter. He shot 4 air balls in the second half from 3.
Shoot or shoot.
Maybe
Willie.
5.
Shoot or shoot.
I mean, part of that is Tennessee's defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is Jakari White having a game going. I'm sure his teammates were going, what is wrong with Jakari today? It's one thing to miss.
Yeah.
But for a 43% shooter to shoot
But
that
UT,
many air balls,
they guard the 3-point well.
They do. They guard the 3-point line very well, and they rebound well. And it still took everything they had to beat Virginia. But that's how close the tournament is. I mean, look at Florida against Iowa. Iowa had to play the game of their life. Now, did you guys see the dispute in that game about the guy that hit the 3?
No, it's timeout.
The guy that hit the game-winning 3 for Iowa in the first half was involved in a skirmish, right? There was a loose ball. They dove on it. They're fighting over the ball. And this guy rears back, and depending on who you ask or whose opinion you buy, he either tried to throw a punch at the Florida player. The Florida people believe that that's what happened. The Iowa people say, well, he's just trying to punch the ball out with 2 guys, hanging out. He's trying to punch it out like you would in football.
Okay.
The refs look at it and they do like the double technical. They look at it forever, and it's, but they didn't eject him. And they explained to Florida that they didn't think the punch didn't land, number one, and they didn't think he intended to hit him. He'd have to be the stupidest guy in the tournament to actually throw a punch like that, because he really reared back. So I would give him the benefit of the doubt that he was trying to knock the ball out. But if he's ejected in the first half, obviously he couldn't hit the game-winning shot.
No.
But in one game, anything can happen. That one bad game. And Florida got out of their A game a little bit in the SEC tournament, and they never got it back.
Derek, you and me might be in direct competition with each other again.
Of course.
Oh, I want to see it.
On Sunday.
I've got it in my bracket, by the way.
I do.
I've got it.
On Sunday, if Duke beats St. John's and Michigan State beats UConn in the East Region Sweet 16 in Washington, D.C., Duke beat Michigan State during the regular season. But all I'm saying is this, Derek. I believe in the revenge factor.
Me too.
I believe in the revenge factor. And although Duke beat Michigan State in East Lansing earlier this season, I think there is a revenge factor that exceeds that revenge factor. And that is in that building in DC in 2019, in the Elite Eight, Michigan State knocked out Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and the Duke Blue Devils.
Was any of those guys playing now?
No, but you know what?
It's no revenge.
7 years later, 7 years later, it's still revenge factor.
The revenge is this season when y'all beat my Spartans. Now we want revenge. And you know another thing?
What's that?
My coach has been here plenty of times. Yours hasn't. Okay. And then again, listen, I think he's an excellent coach. That's a good basketball team. Hands down, it's a good basketball team. But playing Michigan State twice.
Frankly, I'm kind of sick of Michigan State always
Why?
being in Duke's bracket.
Why?
Because it happens all the time.
I would rather us face it.
I want some variance.
Don't be scared because y'all gonna lose.
Oh, well, we'll see.
No,
our teams have to get past their respective opponents first.
And you know who epitomizes the word shooters gonna shoot? St. John's.
Yeah.
St. John's don't care. They took in one sequence, they took 5 shots. An air ball 2 and break 3 of them.
That's the one thing about St. John's is the Red Storm can have some awful shooting nights.
Yeah, and they're due to have one at some point.
They had it. That game that the 3-pointers. I'm surprised they won that game because again on one sequence they kept getting the rebounds. They missed 5 shots. 5 shots and still ended up winning that game.
They probably should have won it easier. They were kind
Exactly,
of in control of
absolutely.
it, and then Kansas crept their way
And
back
St.
in.
John's lost to UConn earlier this season. UConn won 72-40. St. John's missed 12 consecutive shots in the first half. Then its final 24 field goal attempts of the game.
Shoot.
And they beat UConn twice. Despite that loss there, they beat UConn twice at Madison Square Garden in the Big East final and in the regular season. So
yes,
it's one game.
It's one game.
Which St. John's are you going to get? Are they going to be hidden? Because here's the one thing you do know about St. John's. They will D you up.
Oh, yeah. The whole
And Rick
game.
Pitino can coach.
The
He's a
whole
wacky
game.
guy. He's old. He can still coach.
I love that the guy who hit the buzzer beater for St. John's yesterday
just
had
about
not
to say.
attempted a shot, right, in the entire game.
No, but did y'all hear the press conference
Yes,
afterwards?
yes,
and he
I
was
did.
like, Coach, it's not like I didn't hit a winning shot in high school or before that. I mean, Coach came at him like he never hit a winning shot.
Well,
You know?
it was a weird ending. If you watched the lead up to that, if you only saw the last shot, you think, oh, what a game. It was a bizarre situation where Kansas had 2 fouls with 12 or 13, whenever Kansas tied the game. Kansas had 2 fouls, and they elected to foul basically all the way as St. John's tried to get the ball to half court. Kansas just kept fouling. So it's like shaving off time. Now you got 6 seconds. Now you got 4 seconds. And so finally they couldn't foul anymore. So I was thinking they screwed this up because
big
there's
time.
still plenty of time for St. John's. And if they were to foul again, it's a 1-and-1. So I would have stopped at 5 fouls, but it just was this bizarre lead up to the final play, which they probably would have had the same play if they didn't foul.
UConn, the women, by the way, are winning right now. 45-8.
Oh, wow.
45-8.
Didn't I say if they don't score 15 points, they should call? They haven't even scored 10 points.
And this is the second round. This isn't some
yes,
small
exactly.
conference team in the first round, a 16 seed.
UConn is playing Syracuse in the women's tournament. The
They
score
w-
is 45-8 with 4:52 left in the
They
second
went
quarter.
2 quarters and only scored 8 points.
Syracuse has yet to score in the second quarter.
Yikes.
They probably don't have to score for the remainder of the game.
Oh, they didn't score for the last 3 minutes of the first quarter. Oh, had a chance there. Didn't score.
It got rejected.
Oh, boy. 615-737-1025. We'll
Oh,
wrap
my
up the show
goodness.
next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
This is just completely embarrassing. Like, what do you say to your team when you like at the end of the game? If you don't have over 20 points, what do you say to your team?
You tried and you failed miserably. The lesson is never try.
She turns it over. I mean, like everything is going wrong for this group of girls. Everything. The girl wasn't paying attention. She threw the pass to her. She wasn't paying attention and went over her head. Wow. They need to get out of that zone. They probably had to go into the zone.
haters in the building.
D-Mays, Finnegan, and Dominic, 102.5 the game.
Wow.
It's now 63-12 UConn against Syracuse in the women's tournament.
Wow.
Fud for
Gino need to call the dogs
6 out of
off.
9 from 3 in the first half.
Gino need to call the dogs off. He just needs to call them off.
63-12.
That's not Gino. I mean, they're attacking.
Man.
They just keep attacking.
Dogs off the leash, Derek Mason.
Man, he's just like, go, have at him.
How do you feel if you're on Syracuse's bench right now? The score is 63-12, not even halftime.
Wow.
Do you even bother showing up?
What do you
my
say?
mentality, having been a person on the bench at times on teams,
More playing time for me.
Sometimes we were blowing teams out, sometimes getting blown out. And of course, when you're on the end of the bench, you're like, ooh, blowout. Could mean some minutes. Could get some shots late in the game. But like, I feel like the mentality is, I don't even care how many points they get. We've just got to get to 50. We got to
They're
get to
not
50.
getting to 50, Willie.
They're on pace for 24.
They're in trouble.
Exactly.
They're in big trouble.
They
getting to
can't
50.
even get the ball across half court.
You got to
man.
get to 50. You got to get to 50.
Oh, turnover.
They didn't need to score that basket.
It's 65.
Had they
12.
scored that basket, I think Syracuse would have walked out of the building. I do believe that.
Speaking of dogs off the leash, can I just tell you a quick story about the mentality of social media? This is the funny, this is just amusing. This is just the world, right? The Predators are in this real nice little streak. People are excited. You could tweet the best action shot of a goal or the best stat. Let's say Adam came up with a great stat. Sometimes I'll do it. But what gets the most reaction on social media? A picture that our sound guy took of Hal Gill, who was on the set outside with Lindsey Rowley. He secretly took a picture that was a behind-the-scenes shot from behind the desk where they were sitting that you couldn't see on camera. But Hal Gill took his shoes and socks off because it was warm outside. And so there's this just priceless picture of Hal Gill. You see the whole very professional look from the waist up. And he's looking at the camera. Everything looks great on the on TV, but then you see the dogs are loose. And Lindsey Rowley tweets the picture
Who
out.
took the
says,
picture? Just some random
No,
person?
our sound guy.
Oh,
Our
okay.
sound guy noticed it.
Okay.
Frankie, and he took Lindsey's camera and took the picture. And Lindsey just tweeted it out and said, "I work with a caveman." And so everybody just started piling on Skillsy from then on. So that, of all the things that happened on Saturday, great win, exciting, Eustace Onanen, and they're over the playoff line. It's Hal Gill's feet that get all the attention.
I guess people
Who let the dogs out?
There you go.
Some people make you have to pay for those.
Exactly. Hell, he better start charging people.
What are you talking about, Adam?
Nothing.
How would you know?
See, y'all are laughing. I am funny. I am funny, and the show has come full circle. But coming up at the top of the hour, Illinois versus Vanderbilt in the second round of the women's NCAA tournament. The Commodores going for their first Sweet 16 berth since 2009. Can Michaela Blakes and co. get it done, Willie Donick?
Well, this is obviously a great opportunity for them. I'm looking forward to seeing what the atmosphere is like. This is still a fairly new thing. This didn't used to be new. It used to be pretty commonplace that Vanderbilt's women's team would get to the Sweet 16 basically every year. It was a matter of could they win the couple of games after that. But it's been a while since they've been in this spot, so the newness of it should be exciting. I think if they play well, they'll be fine tonight. They did show that if they don't play well in a one-game situation, they could be exploited. That happened to them in the SEC tournament. It may have cost them a chance to be a 1 seed. Hopefully they learn their lesson from that. I'll say this. On that court this year, they have been really, really good. And so I feel like if they bring anything close to their A game, I think it's going to be a fun night to watch. So Illinois is a good team. They won a game, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens from here.
It's now 65-12 UConn against Syracuse.
I'm not calling for 65-12 tonight, but,
Man, good. I hope it is 64-12 at
Yeah.
half for Vandy. So we'll see tonight.
It's always nice to get a stress-free game in the tournament.
Exactly.
Think about how long it's been, or they had to wait. You know, they were sitting on that bad taste loss, right? Where Shea Ralph got thrown out of the game. Did she get thrown out or just get a tech? I don't remember.
I believe she was ejected.
Yeah. So they were hot after that game, and they had to wait a long time to take the court again, and they got the first round done. But I feel like Shea Ralph, you know, where did Shea Ralph come from? The UConn tree, right? Great player and you notice when we're watching UConn, they don't call off the dogs.
Nah.
They only know one way to play, and they blow a lot of teams out, but they have that relentless mentality that a lot of champions have, and I think Shea Ralph is bringing that to Vanderbilt.
Derek, I do want to ask you about some NFL news that broke today. Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I saw it.
4 years, $168.6 million. The highest paid wide receiver in NFL history.
Hey, he deserves it. He's a key point. They just won a Super Bowl. You know, and he was a key part in it. And he's young. I don't even think he's over 26 yet. He may be 26, if not younger.
He's 24.
24, man. So you lock him up because the longer you go, the more you're going to have to pay. You already gave him a record deal. Just think if you waited another year, the money was going to get larger. So good for them, good for him. And this is what happens when you win championships. You got to pay people, and it's all about after that, how do you sort of manage the cap from there? You know, because they've done this before. You know, had a really good team for a period of time, paid a lot of people, won some Super Bowl, won one, went to another, and then all of a sudden, you know, they were not able to, you know, get back to where they once was until this season. So good that they re-signed him, and they got Darnold for another 2 years, right? And I'm sure they're going to re-up his deal, especially if they are a good team. They don't necessarily have to get to Super Bowl next year, but if they're a good team in the playoffs, they're going to redo his deal.
Go back 20 years when you were in the prime of your career, and imagine somebody came from the future and said, "Hey, Derek, in 20 years, wide receivers are going to be making $42 million per year." What would you have said?
One, I would say, can I go back in my mama's belly?
Can I come with you to the future?
Or can I come with you in the future? But no, but then I would have said, well, we've done our job. We've done our job as players because and the fans have done their job. We all have made the sport extremely lucrative because the people before me allowed me to make the money that I'm making, because if the product wasn't good, people wouldn't want to watch it. And what we did is made it better for the guys that are now making money. So I don't begrudge those guys at all. I wish I was playing in it right now, in a sense, for the money, you know. But what we did in that period, I'm talking about all NFL players that played in that era, we paved the way for the guys that are making the money that they're making now. So kudos to him. And it's going to be somebody else that makes a little bit more than he does. So you're only going to be able to hold that record for maybe a year or two.
I feel like you should get some residuals from this. You should call Jackson Smith and Jigba and say, "Hey, it's Derek Mason."
He would be giving a lot of people before me some residuals if that was the case. But no, it's good for them. Just like quarterbacks, they're making they've always made sort of the bulk of the money. But now they're making even more. And every positions, who would have ever thought that a place kicker would be making close to, 10 figures or 9 figures? Well, he makes 9 figures, 10 figures.
It's that luck of the draw,
or
where you have a good year, the cap's going up, teams have something to.
I'm sorry, people.
Teams have money to spend, and it's equally bad for a guy that has that same year in a year where, like right after COVID, where the cap was flatter, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't going up. It was tougher for those guys.
But I don't think I would have never back in 2010, 11, my last year. If you told me a kicker was going to be making like $7, $8, $9 million, I'd be like, are you serious? That much? And that's what the best ones are making. They're making close to that, if not that. So, I mean, the sport has grown. Guys before me paved the way for me, and we've done it opened up the lane even wider for the guys that are doing it now.
I picked the wrong line of work.
Yeah, you did.
I should have been a wide receiver in the NFL.
I picked the wrong position. I should have been a quarterback, or if I was bigger, a left tackle.
But
or longer arms.
But you know what? You had one hell of a career.
Yes.
And look where you are now.
Absolutely. With you guys.
With the comedian.
The funniest guy on the planet.
That's right. That's me. That's right.
And the grooviest guy on the planet to my right.
Willie would say groovy in 2026. I wouldn't put it past him.
I've seen every episode of the Brady
groovy,
Bunch.
man.
They use that term a few times.
Scooby-Doo. Yeah, all that stuff, man. He's groovy.
Willie is
Austin
groovy.
Powers. They use groovy.
Yes, but that was sort of a
more 60s. Yeah.
Yes.
That was sort of the whole point of the movie. But I digress. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. live from Bridgestone Arena, where the Nashville Predators will look to continue their winning streak against the San Jose Sharks. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5 The Game. Trevor Maddich will join us tomorrow. Predators GM Barry Trotz will join us live from Barrel House tomorrow at 5 p.m. We missed Barry last week. He was at the GM's meetings, but he will be back with us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Looking forward to what he has to say about how the Predators have playing. It's also Derek's daughter's birthday tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
And
Absolutely.
it's my birthday tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So
Big day.
Bring us treats. If you're coming to the game, bring us a cupcake.
Exactly.
Bring us something.
Cookie, something.
Derek loves chocolate chip cookies.
So bring Adam all the chocolate chip cookies you want.
I will not.
Because I would benefit from it.
I will not turn down a chocolate chip cookie. But
So
that
would Willie.
But Willie also enjoys a chocolate chip cookie. But that'll do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Again, Bridgestone Arena, Predators versus Sharks, a 3-game homestand for the Predators Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Come on out, and we'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Monday. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. See you tomorrow, 3 p.m. live from Bridgestone. And bring Adam some treats, okay? Because it is his birthday. All right. See you tomorrow. Peace.